And female. I should start.
Go for it.
I'm kidding.
I was gonna.
When you fail, you got here from
Terrific. That was an outstanding performance on the part of the students. I shared with Mr. Infante just the other day a recent study that came out regarding brain development associated with the learning of music. And it actually indicated the sooner you start teaching music and students start engaging in the process of learning music, the sooner they actually develop brain synapses that support all kinds of learning activities that go beyond the actual music that they perform, as magnificent as that is. So that work branches into many areas. That's research that's been there for some time, but it's nice to see it reaffirmed, especially given the current climate around testing and some of the other things that we've been talking about. So in keeping with our structure that we unveiled last month, I just want to remind folks, if you wish to issue comments to the board, that you need to sign in. There's 2 sign-in sheets. One that is for after this presentation regarding anything that's on the agenda. The other is for comments at the end of the meeting associated with anything that isn't on tonight's agenda. Left over from last week, there was a question posed that I did answer, but I want to be sure that I answered it again. It was a good question, because the question comes up in a lot of school districts regarding race to the top. Districts that accepted race to the top money, and whether or not acceptance of that money bound you to conditions that we weren't happy with. What I shared last month, and I'll share again, is that even if you don't accept the money, you're still bound to those conditions, and those conditions are data reporting, teacher evaluation processes, Common Core curriculum, and Common Core assessments. So although the money was minimal, it is still required even if you return the funds. And some districts have returned the funds. However, they still have to abide by the race to the top conditions. So in that regard, around this Common Core and the advocacy efforts of the school district, if you haven't had a chance to see the news today, you may get home or you may tomorrow, Senator Flanagan held a press conference today where he indicated a number of things, not the least of which was the Parents' Bill of Rights regarding the privacy associated with their child's data, minimizing the amount of assessment, and reviewing the Common Core standards and assessment protocols and determining their impact. It isn't everything that we hoped for, but it is certainly a start. That'll be in Newsday tomorrow. It's already online. It was on News 12 as well today. So that's a nice piece for us. In addition, we will be sending out in short order our communications protocol so that parents are aware of the different means of communication that we utilize when we have to engage, whether it's text message, telephone calls, or emails to them, so that they understand, in essence, if this happens, this is the type of communication they should expect. If this happens, this is the type of communication they should expect. Mrs. Lynch has been instrumental in helping put this together regarding the type of communication associated with different incidences. We've reviewed it. We're going to review it one more time. It has been part of our protocol, but before we send it out, we want to make sure that it still aligns with our actual practice. So that'll be something that parents will see and the board will see in short order. There's been some activity associated with the Marion Carl property lawsuit that I want to read a statement about. As the board is aware, in March of 2012, the heirs of Marion Carl filed a suit against the district seeking possession of the Marion Carl property on the basis that the district violated the covenants for its use as set forth in Marion Carl's will. The district responded to the suit, claiming that it has a right to full and unencumbered possession of the Marion Carl property. To be clear, the board believes it has a fiduciary responsibility to assert its legal rights and to reduce the burden of maintenance for this property to the taxpayers of the district. Therefore, the district had hoped to reach a settlement in which the property would be conveyed to the heirs with the consent of the state, and the premises would at least be partially renovated and preserved. Unfortunately, no such settlement could be reached, and the case has not progressed. At this time, the pendency of the lawsuit is now a hindrance to the district's ability to address what we do with the property. Therefore, the Board of Education unanimously authorized our attorneys to make a motion to amend the district's answer and for summary judgment, dismissing the heirs' complaint, granting the district, among other things, clear title to the property. In the motion, if the motion is granted, the district will be in a position to move forward with finding options to deal with the property, options that are acceptable to both the district and the community at large. So there's still obviously more to come. It was a motion that was filed today by legal. Not sure exactly how long that will take, certainly several months. As soon as we have additional information regarding that, we will present such to the Board of Education and to the public. So, keeping and following up some of the things that we talked about at the last board meeting for the board's information, we're going to continue with this conversation that we've been having about access, opportunity, and performance. So the board does have a hard copy of this because there's some data in here. It will be posted on the website for the community's information. Some of the information that we present here tonight is stuff that we work on regularly, pulling data and information from various documents and sources that are produced by outside agencies as well as inside personnel. Mr. Macaluso, Mr. Inforna, and any number of others have a tremendous amount of work in putting this data together. And we started this conversation several years ago around how are we paying attention to students as they work our way through the system. And the guiding idea, and I touched on this last month, this is something that's at the heart of what we do in education. And it has to do with our goals associated with how we're moving children through the system and the learning process. And as it says up here, I don't need to read this to you, but the long and short of it is, children grow and learn and develop at different rates. Our role, our job, is to get them to their highest level of performance in a way that supports whatever it is that they want to do when they leave us. And so those exit criteria and that exit performance is really what's at hand. Because as I talked about last month, you may have a child who's in 4th grade who is a year's difference in age than another, who cognitively has developed at a different rate, who developmentally has progressed faster or slower. So we use those benchmarks as trying to determine how the students are moving through the system, but they're not the be-all, end-all. For us, in essence, the be-all, end-all is, are they able to do what they want to do when they're finished at high school? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and show you some data and information. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the work that we engage in here in the district that helps us with that process. And it also helps us as we move through the unpacking of the Common Core that we talked about last month. So we use something called the Factor Design Process. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about these few points here. We're going to unpack them a little bit publicly, and then we're going to show you that data. So what do we want students to know, be able to do, and truly understand? Right now, what we're doing is evaluating and incorporating Common Core standards. That's part of our job. That's what we do. Whether we use the New York State Learning Standards that were in place before, we use the Common Core standards as the foundation and backbone, or we work on our own because sometimes our standards are actually higher than what come out in the Common Core standards. There's a lot of talk that the Common Core standards are actually more difficult than are acceptable in a lot of schools. That isn't necessarily true here. In some places it is more difficult, in others it isn't as difficult as we'd like, so our staff work on that. Then we determine how we're going to know if students are able to meet those standards. So in essence, we look at evidence. What's the evidence? And it's assessments. It's not always tests. Although there are tests involved, we all know that. It's a reality. Some of it has to do with what the state says that we need to do, and some of it has to do with what happens in the classroom. But there are lots of other ways that we assess students. Then we want to determine the curriculum. Right now, we are adjusting our curriculum to align with the Common Core because there is a Common Core curriculum. And I know I mentioned this last month. However, it's not been fully released, nor do we agree with all of its components. So our staff are working to either look at it, determine whether it's acceptable and adopted, look at it, determine whether they want to adapt it, make some changes, or determine this doesn't work for us, we're going to rewrite this. That is time consuming. It is labor intensive, but it is extremely meaningful to staff and to students. And then we want to align our instructional program. So once you determine the curriculum, what's being presented in the classroom? So what are the lessons and units? There's a rich database of lessons and units that teachers have available to them. They also have their own, and it's predominantly what they do based on the needs of their students in the classroom at that moment. And then once we assess that progress, we want to do an item analysis and get some information from that and determine, okay, what did we do, how well did the students perform, and where can we make changes so that we can adjust our program. It's part of our practice. It's what teachers do. The removal of that and an attempt to sort of superimpose these state modules is something that we don't believe in here, and if you read anything in the press, you know that that's true in a lot of places. And so I'll just real quickly go through a few of them. So when I say alignment of expectations, that doesn't mean that they're identical or the same day in and day out. We're not asking teachers, nor do we think it's appropriate for teachers to do the same things day in and day out. However, at the end of a given check mark, and that's determined by staff, and whether it's at the end of a year or at the end of a particular segment in their educational program or at the end of their entire program from high school, we want to know that students were able to reach those benchmarks. The ultimate alignment is upon exit, so that we know that there are going to be variations in performance as students move through the system. Some of it has to do with who actually is able to perform at different levels, and some of it has to do with that developmental piece that I talked about. And then what do we mean by evidence of learning? So, in essence, evidence can be developed in any number of ways, and I know I talk about this all the time, but I want to drive this point home, and because there's some misunderstanding about every piece of evidence must be something that the student produced that you can actually see on paper. Sometimes it's as simple as a teacher doing an observation, having a conference, keeping an anecdotal record of what the student does. Sometimes it's a video. Sometimes it's a performance. I mean, there is clearly evidence here tonight. So that becomes what it is that we're looking for to determine whether the students met that standard. The curriculum and program alignment, the same type of thing. It is at lockstep. And you will hear stories of districts that are doing the curriculum lockstep. In essence, the modules are being implemented in every classroom at the same time, and we don't believe in that process here. For a lot of reasons, not the least of which is every class is different. So our benchmarking, our alignment comes at the performance level at the end of whatever that checkpoint is, whether it's, say, third grade. It isn't. Did everybody do the same thing at the same time in third grade? That's not appropriate. So we don't work in that way. And I just want to sort of drive those points home, because I want to be sure, and these points will be shared when we have parent meetings, and we're going to announce some of those, the schedule of those parent meetings tonight. That'll be something that's shared with parents so that they understand that, and there isn't an expectation that if you're in teacher A class and teacher B class, they're going to be at the same place at the same time. At the end, the goal is that the students got to the same place. So there's a difference in how you're looking at alignment. And then how do we track that? So that becomes a really big question for us in tracking student growth, because student growth is individual. Now, we can't necessarily prepare individual lessons for every student, as you might imagine. With 7,000 plus students, you can't do that. But how do we check students' growth as they move through the system? And that is a challenge anywhere that you go, in particular because as you keep this information as a classroom teacher, how does that move forward from one teacher to the next, from 1 year to the next, from one building to the next? How do we manage that? So there are lots of ways that places do that. We're developing our own, an academic growth database. It's something that I've done before. It works exceptionally well, and then that database is available for parents to see on the parent portal. So we're going to show you some samples of that. And right now this is in draft form, and I say very strongly that this is in draft form because we've identified some of the assessments that the teachers will use, but those might change because the teachers are involved in that conversation along with administrators and other curriculum specialists to determine which of these assessments do we find valuable and will we continue to use. And then we, as you can see, in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and you can see the level of performance, and you can track it over time so that you have some sense. And whether it goes from the primary school to the intermediate school, from third grade to fourth grade, from fifth grade to sixth grade, staff will be able to view this information and have some sense of what the student's performance was before. So it's, a lot of times now we do entry-level assessments to try to determine the student's level of ability. That is often not necessary. We can look back and then move forward here. So where that's appropriate. So as you'll see, we do this not only in the elementary, but also in the secondary. So as we manage those courses taken, that data will be inputted. And as you can see, it goes everything from SAT scores to the plan, to the Explorer, to the PSAT. It's a database of student information. And we can actually determine whether or not a student lapses somewhere and try to determine whether there's something that we're missing. So he's been performing at a certain level through 4 grades, and suddenly we see a dip. Why is there a dip? It is a very powerful tool, not only for staff, but for parents in understanding how their students are growing. So now the results. So we've been doing that work. It's not fully implemented, but we certainly have been paying attention to it. You know, we've been talking about this access opportunity, academic achievement in the time of increased fiscal awareness and constraint. That's a mouthful. In essence, as you know, we've been dealing with budgetary issues as districts have under the constraints of the tax cap as well as the ability of communities to pay. And so you say to yourself, well, how are we managing our program under those conditions? Because some would worry that your program might suffer. So we've been paying very specific attention to that, and our staff at all levels, whether we're talking about the administrators in this room, or the teachers, or the aides, everyone has been focused on these items with regard to how we are producing this evidence, and the exit evidence is really what our focus has been. So we talked about this during my first year when we did the superintendent's entry plan, and one thing that came up a lot was parents wanted more opportunities for their children in high school. Predominantly at that time, we had IB courses and Regents courses. So you were either IB or Regents. And people were interested in having a wider range of opportunities for higher level courses that weren't necessarily IB courses. And we decided that was a good thing, that we should meet that need. Because there are students that want that challenge of a full IB diploma, and there are others that are looking for a different type of challenge. It's not necessarily lesser, it's different. They're also looking for the opportunity to earn credits. So this is, in expanding our courses, you're going to see, and some of it is repeat data, but we present it a little differently, and then we're going to give you some new information tonight, that there is increased academic achievement. We've been looking at this for the last couple of years, and as we've been shifting our program, we needed a 3-year data set to be able to show a trend. So you can't show a trend after 1 year, you can't show a trend, in my opinion, professional opinion, you need at least a 3-year data set. You have a baseline, then 3 years. So we're also going to look at college applications and acceptances, increased attendance, as you're going to see at the most competitive and highly competitive colleges, and the college scholarships that are offered to our children. These are all indicators of what's happening for our students upon exit from our program. Now, there's a lot of data on this chart. So I'm going to pause just briefly and just walk you down the chart. For those in the back, it might be easier to view on the side. But for the board, you have this and you have a hard copy in front of you. College level courses with enrollment. There's a big difference between offering college level courses if nobody's enrolled in them or kids are enrolled in them. So what you're looking at, we actually have a couple of more courses than you see indicated up there, college level courses, and we've increased those courses up from 62 in 2012 to 69. We don't have the data for those other years because we switched student management systems. But suffice it to say, it wasn't 69. So we know that we've increased the number of opportunities. College level course participation. And you can see that it stayed pretty stable for 3 or 4 years, and then this year it spiked dramatically. A lot of credit has to be given not only to the students and the parents, but certainly to the guidance office and the staff for enlisting students in those opportunities, because students do get nervous about their ability to perform at that level. And when they find out that they actually can, they rise to the occasion. So they have been enrolling in those courses this year. Participation in those courses is extremely high. IB and AP registrations, you can see last year that we had, and that's based on the exams, most significant number that we've had in years. We don't have the information for this year because students haven't registered for those exams yet. Regents diploma rate. Now, you might say, well, we should be graduating all of our students with a Regents diploma. You're right. But in maintaining the 99% or thereabouts, that is a challenge. When you're in a high-performing district and students are performing at that level, how do you make sure you maintain that level? It is something that is focused on very specifically in the school. I know we met several times, Mr. Macaluso and his staff, around how are we determining whether students are on track to get a Regents diploma or advanced Regents diploma. There are lists of students. The guidance counselors pay very specific attention, and the teachers work with those students to make sure that they're able to get through the program. The advanced Regents diploma rate is the same thing. If you consider the fact that 82% of our students is the most significant number of students with an advanced Regents diploma in the state. Now you say, okay, that's great, but to what end? Because that's the next question I ask is to what end? So as you can see, college scholarships, and we're going to build on that a little bit, have increased pretty dramatically from $15 million in our baseline year of 2009 to almost $28 million in 2013. Now I want to be very upfront with you that it doesn't mean that all of that money was paid out to our students. That's the amount of money that was offered to our students based on where they were accepted. So then if they didn't attend a school where they actually were offered a scholarship, well then they obviously didn't receive that money. But nonetheless, it's almost doubled. So that means that opportunity, you could draw a reasonable conclusion that students are bringing home more scholarship money. Now you may wonder, how does that occur? There's something out there called merit money. Now this is a blended number. It's not necessarily just merit money, but merit money is based on SAT scores, ACT scores, and your grade point average. So colleges take that information and determine how much money they're going to give you in merit money. That's money that comes in every year. So for argument's sake, there's a small university in Connecticut. A student with a 1,700 on the SAT and a 90 average might receive $15,000 a year for 4 consecutive years. That's merit money. And it depends on the level of school, the grade levels that you need. Now, some schools are not merit schools. They just simply don't get merit money because every kid is a high performer. So I just want to be clear about what that actually means. The chart below that has to do with the number of students who are actually attending college. So as you can see in 2009, our baseline year, it was about 95%. In 2013, it's almost 99%. So we paid very specific attention to how we could move a high-performing district to higher levels of performance. That's one indicator that students are performing at a higher level. Make no mistake, that means a tremendous effort on the part of parents. I don't want to give you the impression that because we focus on this, that it's an automatic. Parents are deeply involved in this process in completing the applications and frankly, footing the bill. So how do students manage that process? But the community is clearly at a point where almost every single student attends college. So then we had this conversation about, okay, what colleges do they apply to? So it comes down to, okay, so they're getting all these results. As you remember from the last board meeting, SAT scores have gone up every single year. They're at an all-time high for us. Advanced Regents diplomas are up. College level courses are up, which are an indicator of student performance in college. So what colleges are they applying to? So the first column shows 2009. There were about 3,000 college applications and about 1,900, almost 2,000 students, with 2,000 acceptances. Obviously, we don't have 2,000 students. And then you can see in 2013 how much those numbers have increased. So from 3,000 applications in 2009 to 4,200 in 2013. Now you may remember from the previous slide, the number of students, the number of graduates only increased by about 35. So the fact that that number went up by, frankly, a couple of thousand is pretty amazing. I have to give tremendous credit to the guidance office. That they're able to process this many applications and get that information out is just simply amazing because it is a very heavy load, and without their ability to do that, they don't drive home as many acceptances. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. We look at the number of applications to the most competitive colleges. So there are different levels of colleges. Less and non-competitive is at the far right, specialized in foreign programs. Then you have what they refer to as competitive, very competitive, highly competitive, and most competitive. I have a list here of in essence, what are identified into those categories. So in the most competitive, those are your Ivy League schools. Those are University of Chicago, Colgate, Villanova, NYU, Northwestern, Notre Dame, University of Pennsylvania, Pfizer, Pomona. I mean, the list goes on. Those are what are referred to as your most competitive universities. Your highly competitive universities, Boston University, Elon, Emerson, Fordham, Ohio State, Pepperdine, Loyola, and again, a fairly long list. And then as you move your way down through very competitive, and I don't want to read these to you, these are something that have actually been supplied in the document, and I know you all had time to read this. It's only about 100 pages or so long. Most of what you'll see here tonight comes out of this document. So those are the types of applications that are made. Now what you want to see over time is that further to the right, the number of applications to those universities drop. And the numbers to the left, the applications to those universities increase. And that's exactly what you see as you look at the baseline years for most competitive. You can see the number of applications in 2009 was 366 and in 2013 was 746. And the number of acceptances went from 115 to 229. So as you work your way across, so you'll see fewer to the right and more to the left because you want students applying to the schools that are going to give them first some funds, and then the challenges associated with what they want to do academically. So then it talks about not just where they're accepted, but where they attend. Because acceptances are one thing. So you get a list of schools. John and I have talked about this any number of times, Mr. Macaluso, I should say. When they get those acceptances, where will they attend? Because that's where the rubber hits the road. So as you can see, the attendances, and if you work your way from right to left again, you can see that those numbers decrease over time, which is what you want. If you look at the percentages at the bottom, you can see that in 2009, 33% were attending lesser non-competitive universities. In 2013, it was 21%. In competitive, it went from 26 to 31 because those students moved their way up. But all the way to the left, where you see most competitive and highly competitive, the number went from the combined number, I know Mr. Forney gave me this number.
21.
Say that again?
21 to 27.
It went from 21 to 26, 5% increase between those 2 years. So as you can see, the attendance is then up. It's not just the acceptances, but where they attend. We are working on ways to determine how students are performing when they actually get there. That's a difficult data set to attain as you send out surveys and determine what students are doing. What we do know is that when students go to more highly successful colleges, they tend to succeed. And we also know the research is very clear on this. Student success is at the college level, there are two primary determining factors. One has to do with your family background, socioeconomic status, as well as then, did you sit for at least one college level course in high school? That helps you with regard to your success. So the evidence of Commack is clear. This is that summary slide. I told you this last month, but I got to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then I tell you, then I tell you what I told you. I'm not going to read through every one, but you can see that there are increases in every one of the categories that we find meaningful. And that is due to a tremendous effort on the part of many, many people. But the data set now allows for us to look at a baseline, a 3-year running average, and then, of course, we'll look at what happens for 2014. It is important to note, for the board to note, that you will see anomalies year to year. Not every group of students is the same. They have different talents, they have different abilities, and as we do this work, our goal is to prepare them for what it is that they want to do. I've said this before. Our goal is not to win awards. We are not here. If we focused all of our energies on offering IB classes and forced every kid into IB classes, we would win award after award after award. Because that is a single data set that's easy to be measured by these award companies. That's not our goal. We want to provide opportunity, access and opportunity for every student. So that is something that we're really quite proud of. So as we work on this and we move forward, we're going to continue to present with you with that data set. But we have, as you know, promised that we would begin to engage in additional conversations with the community around Common Core standards, curriculum, and assessment. So what you see on the screen are a list of workshops that are going to be running over the next couple of months. It is just the beginning. There will be additional workshops scheduled where we share with folks the differences between standards, the curriculum, and assessments. Talk about how we're doing it here in Commack and what that's going to look like in their actual schools so that the parents are informed. It is detailed information. I've been talking to you about it for months. Week after week in updates and things of that nature. It is a lot of information and not as easy to process. But we're going to endeavor to do that and explain how we are working with that here in our schools. Moving forward, we are also going to continue with our State of the District presentations. This is the last meeting where I'll stand up here for the entire meeting and talk to you. In January, we will start with the K-12 instructional program highlights. You may recall 2 years ago, we broke up our budget presentations and we did the highlights leading up to the budget presentations over 2 meetings. So you'll see K-12 instructional program, and then in February, athletics, facilities, technology, and security highlights. The folks that are sitting on the sideline are hearing about those dates as we speak. They were just happy it wasn't tonight. So those presentations will begin, and they're highlights. They are meant to be highlights. Not only do we not have the time, but it is a cumulative process. They will present very specific components of the program. In particular, if something that was new, that was changed, that was approved at during the last budget session, they're going to share that information with you. If there's something that they're particularly proud of, they're going to share that information as well. And then March 13th, we start our budget workshops. So as you can see, there is, in essence, well in advance, people can see exactly what we will be presenting. At the request of the Board of Education, we have truncated that a little bit, so that information yet again, so that people have as much information as they feel is appropriate. We are also beginning the community outreach meetings again. Mrs. Verga and myself, the community outreach group, so there will be opportunities for people to hear about the budget development process at those meetings as well. And so those workshops will begin. We are well on our way. We're not exactly sure how the budget is going to shape up yet, predominantly because we're not sure what's going to happen with state aid. We're pretty comfortable with what we have going here. We feel stable. However, we are still concerned, as always, about how state is going to be managed. Moving forward, before I move forward, are there any questions from the board on this presentation? Or anything that was presented here tonight? Okay, I'll end this with the indication that as we looked at the high-performing district, you know, when I made a determination to come to Commack, somebody said, you know, you're crazy. If you go to Commack, it's already high-performing. How will you help move their performance higher? And I said, well, we're going to do our work, we're going to engage in our work, and we're going to engage the staff and the community in that conversation. My guess will be that you will see higher levels of performance. And indeed, that's what we've seen in response to what not only the parents and the students are looking for, but the way the staff feel about their work is a critical component of that. So I want to thank everybody for their efforts as we continue, and it's not over. In fact, it's iterative. It takes years for us to go through this process. But the performance levels and what we're able to deliver to our students, I want to commend everybody who's sitting here, because there's a person here who doesn't play a role in that, and there's just dozens of people sitting out in the audience. Parents, it starts in, well, before pre-K, but certainly in our schools, pre-K and kindergarten, it's a tremendous effort, and I want to thank everybody for that. So moving forward, if there are no questions, there are a couple of things on tonight's agenda regarding collective bargaining. And this is a first opportunity for the board to hear in public from Mr. Reza Khalifar, who is our HR person, who is going to provide for you a summary. I know you have some documents on that for community members. The MOAs themselves were posted on our website. Mr. Khalifar is going to go through some of those changes for the board's consideration tonight. This is Mr. Khalifar's first public presentation. So let's welcome Mr. Khalifa.
Well, I will say from the onset that I got into personnel because I knew personnel I wouldn't be doing presentations in public, and then I came to Commack, and here I am. So, thank you for that. Well, good evening, board trustees, Superintendent James. Tonight, you're being asked to approve the memorandums of agreement for both the clerical CSSA units and the aid CTAA bargaining units. I'd like to highlight the provisions which were agreed upon. All current provisions remain, with the following changes or additions outlined in the presentation tonight. First, I'll start with the clerical contract. That's the CSSA. The contract length for this particular bargaining group is going to be 4 years. You'll notice that the date is July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2016. That is because their previous agreement had expired on June 30th of 2012, so we did go back 1 year. There are some new provisions for new members to the bargaining unit. One of the new provisions for anyone hired after November 18th, and if you wonder why that seems like such an arbitrary date, that is the ratification vote was on November 18th, so any new members hired after that date are subject to these new provisions. One is that they will be making a 23% health insurance contribution. The current employees remain at the 20% that they currently pay and have paid for quite some time. There is a new salary schedule for those new employees. The current salary schedule has 15 steps, whereas this new salary schedule for anybody coming on board after this ratification date will have 26 steps in that salary schedule. The benefit of that is that we were able to elongate the top salaries, basically. So rather than a 2.9% increase in between steps, step 1, 2, 3, and so on, there's only a 1.5% increase. So from year to year, there is a significant savings, and moving forward, eventually, everyone will be on this new salary schedule. So we're very happy and thankful for that particular provision. Some of the other health insurance provisions that we all agreed to, and this is for all members, is that we did agree to the current night shift buyback language. This limits the buyout eligibility for some members. There are some members that still will be eligible for it. However, for most of them, they will no longer be entitled to the buyback. Continuing with the CSSA, the salary schedule, or the salary schedules from 2012 increased as exhibited here. In 2012-13, there was a 0% increase over the salary schedule from the 11-12 school year. That means there's no retroactive pay that we will have to provide for the members of that bargaining unit. In 2013-14, which is this current school year, there is a 1% increase, so there is a retroactive amount of money that the individuals in this contract are entitled to. And then in 14-15 next year, there's a 1.25% increase, and for the 15-16 school year, there's a 1.5% increase. Any employee who was on top step at the time the contract expired will be eligible to receive a $1,000 one-time payment. So this is not a payment that will be in anyone's base salary, but the district and the bargaining unit felt that because individuals were not afforded the opportunity to have any increase in that year, we were willing to give them this $1,000 one-time payment. And there is a retirement incentive offered to the employees of this bargaining unit. For the next 2 years, this year and the 14-15 school year, there will be no age restriction as to when an employee can retire. However, in the year 15-16, an employee has to be first eligible at the age of 63. If they've gone beyond the age of eligibility, that's 63 years old, they will not be eligible for this $15,000 increase. So that right now, those are all the provisions for the clerical contract. Before I go on to the AIDS contract, does the board have any questions regarding the clerical?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
The retirement incentive, so there was no age restriction this year, next year, age of eligibility 63 or younger.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to the AIDS unit. As you know, the aides are our school monitors, our clerical aides, our special ed aides, and this is a unit of primarily part-time individuals. There is no health insurance that is offered to these individuals at this time. The provisions of the contract are, their contract length was a 3-year contract length. This is from July of 2012 through June 30th of 2015. Similar to the clerical contracts, their contract had expired and they've been working without a contract for the last year and 4 or 5 months or a year and a half. The salary increases, are to their salary and also their attendance bonus, are as follows. They do have a 1% increase in their first year. This is going to mean that they will receive a retroactive amount of money based on the hours they've worked for that year. There is a 1% increase for this current school year and a 1% increase for next year. So we will be back at the bargaining table shortly with the AIDS unit. We also were, they had asked and we were accepting of the members receiving 1 sick day per year. Currently, they don't receive any. So they will receive 1 sick day per year, and they will be able to accumulate unused sick time up to 15 days. There are a couple of other provisions with the aides that were important for them, one being the reimbursement for jury duty. So as with many of our other employees, if they serve on jury duty, they do have to reimburse the district whatever money they receive from the courts, and we will pay them for their time. There is a higher rate of pay. At times, there is a need for one of our school monitors to come in and become a special ed aide. As you may remember, and if you don't, I will let you know that we do pay our special ed aides slightly higher hourly rates than we do for a school monitor. So if a school monitor comes in and serves in the capacity of a special ed aide for a period of 31 consecutive days, we will pay them retroactive to that first day they started as a special ed aide. And that was one of the agreements that we had reached. There is in-service training that they requested, and we find very much value in. As a matter of fact, Ms. Ryan was very instrumental in getting the aides training for EpiPens and some of the other things during Superintendent Conference Day this year. So we were thankful that this is in there, because we've actually, we've fulfilled most of the obligation already, and it's only December. And then there is also a lunch break that at times somebody is being asked to run a double shift, and if the double shift reaches 6 hours or more, they have to receive a half-hour unpaid break in addition to the regular 15-minute paid break. So, just so everybody is aware, this is actually the law. Any employee that works 6 hours has to be given an unpaid break of 30 minutes. So we just memorialized it in the contract, or will do so at this point. That's the end. I didn't realize I did that. So anyway, in closing, I just wanted to say that it really was a joint effort, I believe, on the parts of both the clerical and the CTAA. They did an outstanding job. And truthfully, I call myself the Mariano Rivera of the negotiating team. I just kind of felt like I came in at the 11th hour. I looked like the superstar. I really did next to nothing. Laura Newman, Mara Harvey, and Bob Waters were instrumental as well. So if there are any questions from the board, I'll be happy to answer anything that you have.
I have a quick question. Can you give us a comparison as to what the cost is to the district for these two contracts compared to what we're paying now? In other words, is there a savings, or is it a nominal increase over the course of the contract?
I can't give you that information right now.
Ms. Newman?
I don't know if Ms. Newman has that information handy, but I can certainly get that for you.
What I can say is that in both cases, both agreements resulted in settlements that were within our tax cap provisions. We can certainly supply exact numbers to the Board of Education.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, it's going to go up if they give them a percentage raise, right?
Okay, at this time, I will take any questions or comments from, from anyone in the audience on the agenda items. Anybody sign in?
I don't know the ground rules, so do I have to state my name and address and all that jazz?
Not your address.
Dan Fusco. My first question is related to the presentation we had tonight. I think on the slide it said there was 69 college courses that are available to the students. Just so happens that this week my kid brought home the sheet that picked the courses. Now that was elective courses, and on that sheet I only saw 2 college courses available. So are you saying that there's 67 college courses that are not electives that are available to be chosen by the students? And the next question leads into what is that list, and how do we ascertain what classes are available?
We
will, I don't have that information right here, as you might imagine, so what we will do is provide that information either both to you between now and the next meeting, and at the next meeting where we present such.
So the next meeting is going to be after you choose your courses? So the information that you're going to get is not...
They will present, Mr. Macaluso will be in touch with you, so you have the information. He'll make sure that if there are others that need information in the school, that they have it, and then we will present again on January 23rd, so we'll make sure you have it.
Next question was, I saw on the agenda there was something regarding Energy Connect Incorporated, and as I read through section 3, there's a mention of JCI in there, and I wasn't sure if that meant Johnson Controls. It said something to the effect that any money that we put in the bank, in that savings bank, is to be used for Johnson, JCI. Would that be Johnson Controls, or was that a typo?
When this item comes up for discussion, I know Mrs. Newman will be discussing components of that contract.
Okay. Last question I have is I saw there was a donation going to be given by Joanne Fabrics of $2,000. And my question is, how come that donation does not have to go through the Commack Education Foundation? That was a question I asked several meetings ago. I never got the answer as to how this is set up so that donations go to the school district. I think I was told that they have to go through the Commack Education Foundation, and this one doesn't appear to be doing that.
I believe this is just for the general use of the school, not for a specific program.
It's a $2,000 donation. That's money. So how does that money go from Joanne Fabrics to the school district? What's the mechanism?
If I could, at the next meeting, during the administrative report, I will have Mrs. Newman discuss this.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Ms. Benny, anyone else? That's all right, I know you're taking notes too.
Teresa Burke?
Teresa Burke. Good evening. Just 2 points. One is the Common Core that we were talking about. Can someone explain if in 2010 we received the money regarding the race to the top, and that New York State adopted the Common Core, and then also in 2010 the districts were mandated to utilize the Common Core. What did we do from 2010 to now to get us prepared for it?
I'm sorry.
Prepared for it, because it looks like from the slide, we kind of know this is coming in 2010, yet it seems like it's getting kind of like pushed on us now. Now, I don't know why it seems like that, but I'm just curious. Is it because the testing just happened this year, or I'm not sure what happened between 2010 and 2013?
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you all set?
Yeah.
You finished? There are 3 different components to the Common Core. So there are the standards. Those were released in 2010. Nothing else was released. So the district took the standards and they modified their curriculum and their instructional program accordingly. Subsequently, the state announced last year that they would implement Common Core assessments, which are the state tests, which were changed from what the previous tests were. They were also then releasing curriculum at the same time, but not all of it. So we didn't have it all. So we had our curriculum that was aligned with the standards, the new curriculum coming out that we were trying to determine what we would utilize, and then they changed the assessments. So on the fly, before we even saw the assessments, we then had to try to make adjustments. So the issue at hand for us is, when you have standards and curriculum, you absolutely make local decisions about the standards that you're going to focus on and how you're going to implement your curriculum. But when they then take tests, which are narrow and focused in a way that you don't know, or you may not even agree with, then what you've been working on with regard to the standards and the curriculum has to change if you want to perform at a higher level on those tests. So we've been making very concerted and purposeful decisions about where our focus will be, because our primary focus is not necessarily presenting everything at the exact same time, at the exact same grade, as what the Common Core curriculum and assessments would have you do, because students develop at different times and levels and abilities, because we wanted to get to what I showed up here tonight. So, and what I showed at the last meeting, where the students are performing on the Regents exams, on the SATs, college level courses, and then graduating and going off to college. So the struggle is, and every district is struggling with this, us actually less than some, because we had made adjustments early. And frankly, our students performed at a high level. So I'm not sure if that quite answered your question. But what I can do is make sure that when we do future presentations, I present some of the information differently than what I've done the last couple of presentations, so that it, sometimes it's just a matter of how you say it and then how it's heard. But they've been working diligently to make the adjustments, but the assessments themselves have actually created a conundrum for us because we don't agree. And as you might imagine, if you follow the press at all, and I know you do, not many people do agree. The assessments are ill-conceived, they're developmentally inappropriate, they're very myopic, and then they're implemented in a way that doesn't have any meaning for our students or staff. So, frankly, it's a waste of time. However, it's a state mandate, and we are moving forward. We're trying to make those adjustments without sacrificing the rest of our program.
Okay, so just let me see if I understand it. Right now, when a child is in, say, 5th grade, and they get a English textbook or a math textbook or a social studies textbook, and it covers everything for 5th grade, if the teachers teach everything in that textbook, will they be prepared for the state test, or is that changing? Maybe that's how an easier way of explaining it. Or you can tell me that it's changing, but I'm just trying to understand it.
It is a very good and legitimate question. The book itself, no. If they teach everything in the book, will they be ready for the test? No.
Oh,
Because
okay,
the book
that's
doesn't
fair.
necessarily align with standards.
So that's what it is. It's the standards that are changing. Okay, that explains it a little bit better to me, because right now I didn't understand. I just thought if you teach everything in the book, it's like the regions. You teach everything that's going to be on the regions. They take the regions. They do well in the regions. But that's not really what this is all of. That's where the changing is. The standards are changing. Okay, that was. I think I understand it a little bit better now. Okay, and then the only other question I have regarding this portion is one of the slides that we showed on the International Baccalaureate, your numbers. I just want to double check. If there were 629 graduating students, okay, maybe, see, this is where I don't know if this system is really going to work, because this is the slide that I'm talking about, okay? This is the slide that I'm talking about. There's from what I'm reading it, 164 students were IB candidates, but only 123 received the diploma. That means there were 41 that tried for the diploma and didn't get it. Am I understanding that correctly? But then only 164 of the 629 students went for the diploma? Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It should be noted as well, though, that there are lots of students who take IB courses who are not diploma candidates. So there are hundreds of students who take IB courses for certificates, much like you would an AP course, but they're not IB diploma candidates. So they're two different buckets.
Okay, so we just finished. I didn't realize we were having, then maybe that's an important bar that can be added. That's all. It's just because, like, as I said, I simply just read it to you as it was given, but that would have been a nice bar just to add going forward.
Anyone else?
Nobody else.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the November 21st board meeting? Motion made by Mr. Tampolini, seconded by Mrs. Masiello. Discussion, all in favor? Can I get a motion to approve personnel as amended? Motion made by Mrs. Masiello, seconded by Mr. Hartman. Discussion, all in favor? Yes. Unanimously, we have no correspondence this month and no old business. Can I get a motion to approve the 2 bids, integrated pest management and sale of math textbooks? Motion made by Mrs. Hoover, I'll second it. Discussion, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve new business items 1 through 8? Motion made by Mr. Tampolini, seconded by Mr. Hartman. Discussion, Mrs. Newman, on the Energy Connect?
Yes, sure. On the Energy Connect contract, ECI is the corporation. Mr. Schramm has been able to bring this contract to the district. It is an energy response program. What that means is that during peak energy times, the district is asked to reduce the load of power that we use. We have been doing that for the past few years under a different program that generated about $1,000 to $2,000 each year. This is a much more sophisticated and much more utilization of that demand response. We have estimates that we believe will create a revenue stream of about $40,000, so it's a significantly increased program. In addition to that revenue stream, it also gives us the ability to take the energy demand program into the classroom. It's a highly sophisticated software. The company will train our teachers and staff at no cost to us in ways for them to utilize the software so that if it wants to be, and I can see Allison is, really? Yes, and we could bring that into the curriculum, also perhaps for some clubs. So we're very excited about the potential that this program brings, not only from a fiscal standpoint, but also from an educational standpoint. Mr. Schramm, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'd say you touched base on most of it, but
Sorry.
the best part about this program is that, for the most part, peak demand times are July and August, late afternoon. It really doesn't impact the buildings. So that's the beauty part of it. Most of the time, the schools are unoccupied, and the reduction is it's felt minimally when night falls an event. So.
And I'd also just like to comment and thank the two unions for the negotiation before we approve the contracts. I think we've got fair, equitable settlements for both sides and the community. Any further discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve the District of Location contract with Lawrence Union Free School District for the 2013-14 school year for students who require special ed services and reside in the Lawrence School District and attend a private or parochial school here in Commack? I'll make the motion, seconded by Mrs. Goober. Discussion, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve the 2014-15 IDEA funds for Kids First, NSSA, Variety Child, EDI, and Brookville Center for Children's Services? Motion made by Mrs. Masiello, seconded by Mr. Tampolini. Again, I do business with a couple of these, so I will abstain. All in favor? Abstain. Can I get a motion to accept the following donations? Donations from the Commack Lacrosse Booster Club of 20 helmets valued at $3,600 to be used by the high school lacrosse team. Donation from Life Touch Photo of 3 cameras and an iPad in recognition of the middle school English teacher Tony Benelli Cohn's outstanding working relationship with Life Touch to benefit CMS yearbook staff, and a donation from Joanne Fabrics and Crafts of $2,000 for the benefit of the middle school. Motion made by Mrs. Goober, seconded by Mr. Tampolini. As usual, thanks to all the people who continue to support this school district. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve the following 2 field trips? NDA Championships in Orlando, March 5th to 10th, and Commack High School to Lincoln Center for Performing Arts on January 10th. Motion made by Mrs. Masiello, seconded by Mrs. Goober. Discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Can I get a motion to approve the appointment of the volunteers to the district volunteer program? Motion made by Mr. Hartman, seconded by Mr. Tampolini. Discussion? Again, thanks to all of those people for donating all of the time they do as volunteers. It's fellow Comackians who make this district what it is. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Under legal, can I get a motion, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, a particular employee is suspended without pay effective 12:01 a.m. on January 1st, 2014. I'll make the motion, seconded by Mrs. Goober. Discussion, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Under board business, Can I get a motion to acknowledge receipt of the internal claims auditor's monthly update? Motion made by Mrs. Masiello, all seconded. Discussion, all in favor? Carries unanimously. And can I get a motion to acknowledge receipt of the CSE, CPSE recommendations on the dates listed? Motion made by Mrs. Cooper, seconded by Mr. Hartman. Discussion, all in favor? Carries unanimously. And can I get a motion to acknowledge receipt of all of the financial reports that are indicated, items 1 to 9, motion made by Mr. Tampolini, seconded by Mrs. Masiello. Discussion, all in favor? Tonight is Commack Educational Foundation's Commack Idol at the middle school. And if anyone, if you've never been there, show up. It is an amazing, amazing, wonderful night, and our students are phenomenal. Can I get a motion that the Commack School District will hold a special meeting on Monday, December 16, 2013, here at Hubs at 6:30 p.m. It is anticipated that the Board of Education will make a motion for the purpose of adjourning into exec session at this time, and no public action will be taken that evening. I'll make the motion, seconded by Mr. Hartman. Discussion, all in favor? Passed unanimously. And can I get a motion that the Commack Union Free School District will hold its regular meeting on Thursday, January 23rd, 2014 at 6:30 p.m. here at Hubs. It is anticipated that the board will make a motion for the purpose of adjourning into exec session at this time, and at 8 p.m. the board will reconvene in public session for the purpose of holding this regular business meeting. Next time I'll combine those into two. I'll make the motion, seconded by Mrs. Masiello. Discussion, all in favor? Okay, do we have anyone who's coming to the mic on anything? Is it?
No, she didn't. You lost. Go ahead.
Oh, then-
You can go first.
I actually had a meeting, and it's funny that it had to do with something that Dr. James spoke about today with a couple of parents, and they said to me, we've been hearing a lot of talk regarding students that are not prepared for college. These two parents happened to have a meeting today and with me, and they said their children are finally coming home from their first semester away at college. They're very happy to have their children coming home for the holidays. One of the children told his mom, it was never, a love of school. I was never found Commack School District to be the love of my life. But now that I'm away at college and he's at Fordham University, he says, I realized how prepared Commack has made me for not only academically, but emotionally to be ready for a school like Fordham. He says many of his classmates are from private schools, and he is just as prepared, if not more so, than they are. He says that he's looking forward to coming home so he can volunteer again in Special Olympics. The other two students, one of them was a student at St. John's, and she sent an email saying that she just wanted to thank everyone that the time that she's having at St. John's is working so well for her, that she volunteers, she participates in the school activities, and she's performing very, very well academically. So she wanted to thank the school board and administration for their help in preparing her. Therefore, I'd just like to say that I hope that we as a school district and as a school board and administration can continue on this road to give each and every child an opportunity to succeed in whatever endeavors they so desire. So thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure I got Peter on this still.
All right, first question is, I was reading the news today about the state tax freeze, and I just wanted to know how that was going to affect us, the Commack School District. I think we stayed within the tax cap, so we are going to be eligible to.
There's very limited information, and I actually think it is intended for moving forward. In other words, not this last one, the next budget cycle.
Not this budget year coming up, the next
One
budget.
coming up.
Okay. Yeah, not the one we're currently in, obviously, the next one. So are we going to be, we're going to be within the parameters to partake into the state tax freeze?
We don't know yet. The budget, we haven't done the budget for next year yet. It would be based on next year's budget, as I understand it. However,
it hasn't been through the Assembly or the Senate. It was a committee recommendation, and we don't really have a lot of information.
And just to clarify, the way I read it, it's not a tax freeze. The way I read this, and nobody knows yet, your property taxes might go up. You'll just get a rebate from the state of the money. That's not actually a freeze before people think their taxes are frozen. But that's just preliminary reading, because there's no real detail on it.
Yeah, well, your cost for taxes will be the same.
Net.
Net, yeah.
Net.
Okay. Second question I had was, how many questions do I get before I...
You have 5 minutes.
I got 5 minutes, okay. All right. Maintenance contract with, for the Johnson's Control, for that energy project we're doing. Was there a requirement for us to take out a maintenance contract with Johnson Controls to maintain the system over 20 years? And if so, how much are we going to be paying for that maintenance contract?
Okay, we recorded that question and we'll respond at the next meeting.
Okay. Next question was, on the agendas, I see that the Board of Education acknowledges the bills. Every month, it's the Board of Education acknowledges the bills. Is that all the Board of Education does, is acknowledge the bills? There's never a vote to pay the bills? Like, we don't approve the bills?
The board, having appointed an internal auditor, has delegated that responsibility to that individual, and in fact, having done so, is precluded from approving bills. There are some small districts in which the board itself sits and goes through, I think they're called, Laura, help me out, the warrants. The warrants, where the board would sit around here and go through every bill presented to the school district, whether it be for $10 or $10,000, and in large districts, that is very time consuming. Therefore, most large districts have appointed a professional internal auditor who fulfills that function.
And the reason that's the items that are there was it was decided a long time ago for the community, just for community information on certain types of things, the construction projects, legal bills, and the few others that are there, and those are the only ones there. They're really there for community information, that the construction bill is X amount of money against the bond issue, or the Excel, or the Johnson Controls. It's just there for community information.
So you vote to accept the bill, and then you don't look at the bill and see if it's...
We're acknowledging receipt.
And then somebody else decides whether or not it should be paid, if it's valid. You guys don't look at it? Okay.
They're a very, very detailed system in which they work. And they are professionals at every level, including our business administrator. And so, as opposed to any one of us 5 having more or less expertise, it's all being done by professionals.
Okay, just a little bit different than I've seen it done. I've seen the system where Mr. Bonovsky said with the warrants being paid, but okay.
Not in a district this size, I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm the village attorney in Nissisquam. They have the village board goes through all the warrants, and it's, you know, they pay out maybe, I'm making up $30,000 a month. It's quite a burden on the trustees to sit there and go through the snow plow bill and the new tires on the police car. That's what they do.
Okay. I think my last question is related to the contracts that we saw up there. Last year, I believe around this time, you guys all discussed about the extension of the superintendent's contract, and we didn't hear about it this year. Is that going to be something you guys are going to discuss at a board meeting, the extension of his contract again? And then the other question to go along with that was, I think last year, Dr. James agreed to take a 0% raise, and we haven't heard anything about raises this year. So is it a 0? Are you guys giving a raise?
Finish your questions and then we'll answer it.
Okay, those are my 2 questions.
That's all your questions?
Yeah.
Okay, because your 5 minutes are up, I will answer one of them. Okay? Although allowable under the terms and conditions of his contract, the superintendent determined that he would not place on the agenda a resolution extending his contract, a contract that has more than 4.5 years before it expires. In an email to the board, the superintendent wrote, "Given the fact that we are about to enter into contract negotiation with the Commack Teachers Association, I believe to engage in the extension process at this time will only serve as a distraction with potential unanticipated consequences, including, but not limited to, the union and/or members of the public misinterpreting and/or using the extension of term and conditions during the negotiations process. In addition, my current contract still has almost 54 months remaining, and the state legal limit is 60 months. With this much time still left in the agreement, there will be sufficient opportunity to engage in this process once we have achieved a satisfactory labor settlement with the largest unit in the district. For these reasons, I see no purpose in creating any distraction related to this matter. Therefore, I am notifying the board that I will not place this item on the December 2013 Board of Education meeting agenda.
How did he know I was going to ask that question? I'm not making it wasn't a setup. Thank you, that's all I have.
Anyone else signed in?
Yes.
Just one thing. Can you answer his second question? I mean, what's the point in not answering?
I'm sorry. You're right. The second question was, his raise this year was his contractual raise.
Well, the contract has different parameters.
No. That's what we're not entering into any longer. The answer to your question is his raise for this year is his contractual raise, and please do not ask me what the number is because I don't have the contract in front of me and I'm not giving out wrong information. It is on the website, I believe.
Okay. My first question is regarding to the call farm.
To the what?
To the call farm, Marianne Call Farm.
Sorry.
Just a quick question regarding, if we, from what I understood, if it gets dismissed and we get it back, does that eliminate the contingencies that are still on it, or are we still obligated to those contingencies when we go to do whatever we want to do with it?
If we win, the conditions and restrictions placed on the property by the will and the deed will be eliminated. There still will remain, for a number of years, certain covenants held by the state in connection with some money grants, but they're going to expire over the next couple of years. So if it is the heirs brought this lawsuit to enforce the conditions in the will, we're making a motion to dismiss that, and if we win, those conditions will be extinguished.
Good, thank you. The second question I had was, when the slides are being made up regarding scholarships and applications, is it possible going forward that we have one with the actual numbers, the actual graduates, with, the number of colleges they went to, what their actual money was? Because I'll give you an example. My son applied to 17 schools. He got scholarships at 16 of them. We sent everyone in, so I know that's a little exaggerated number that we get, and I understand you're just doing based on what the information you receive, but is there a way of knowing the 690 students that went to, or 670 students went to college, just how much they got, just based on that number, the actual number of how much scholarship money they received. Oop, throwing my pen.
Are you saying, so the actual number versus,
Well, we actually.
You understand what I mean?
Let's qualify that that is not an exaggerated number, and in fact.
No.
No, I know you're not saying that, but, yeah, I mean, I did say it, but what is being said here is the children's work, when they put themselves out there, qualified the money to come in our direction. Of course, they can't take more than one offer. So your question is, could we in addition have a more singled out number as to per student or however?
It's just a thought. I mean, again, if it's possible, if it's not. Oh, no. When we use the word exaggerated, it just means that we obviously know each child cannot take the $47,000 they offered unless it was offered by that one school that they served. But they earned it, absolutely, and I agree the slide should be in there. I just was wondering if we could get a little bit more accurate one going forward. It's just a suggestion. And then this is regarding, I just have two quick questions regarding the contracts. Is a step a year? Does a step equal a year, or is it, because you kept saying, you were saying steps, like, and I wasn't sure, I got lost between 15 steps to 26 steps. What does that mean?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this way. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll still answer.
Step is typically a year, yes.
So a step is, so when they go from 15 to 26, that means it's 26 years to reach where the maximum was, or wherever?
Yes.
Okay. And then just the last one, it's really more of a technical question. It's regarding the ASOP program that we have. Are you guys familiar with it, the way the subs jobs are issued? You're familiar with it? Okay. since, I want to say, August 12th, there's a verbiage on there saying that going forward, all new postings of jobs will be placed on ASOP. They haven't been yet, but I know based on showing up at these meetings, several jobs have been hired and filled, yet I haven't seen any of those on there, so I know it may not be your expertise, so maybe we can follow it up at the next meeting, or someone can get back to me if you're not familiar with the process, or the, okay, that was it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Why wouldn't they be familiar with the hiring process?
I'm taking my family. Janine DiGirolamo, and I just want to prepare, my questions aren't half as exciting as theirs are. I don't know where this information comes from, but I couldn't possibly ask those questions. I know Mrs. Burke referred to a piece of paper that showed the slides for the superintendent's presentation. Where was that?
And she actually had a slide from a different presentation.
It was last month. Last month. It's on the web.
It's online.
I just printed it out today, so you can look it on the web.
Nice.
No, because I saw it again, I'm like, we don't have that one in front of us
I was
either.
going to say, I didn't see that one. And the other question I had was, it has to do with electives and study halls and stuff like that in the high school. Is there some sort of standard that makes sure that before certain students have, let's say, multiple electives, every child has at least one, or that, you know, a certain quota is met, to make sure that certain students don't have more downtime, study halls?
We will record the question. Mr. Macaluso will get back to you, and we'll present the information at the next board meeting as well.
Okay. It could we speak after the meeting, more specifically, before the deadline? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Mr. Tampolini, seconded by Mrs. Cooper, all in favor?
That was a good question.